Okay, let's get into it. Everyone's trying to figure out where the global economy is headed, right?
Absolutely.
But, very few people have the resources, the teams of analysts, and frankly, the sheer amount of capital to really shape what's coming. So today, we're trying to peer into the crystal ball of some of the wealthiest investors out there, the major capital players, the oligarchs. We want to find out where they're placing their biggest bets for 2026.
And that's really the mission, isn't it? When we talk about major capital, we're not just talking about venture capitalists who are looking for, a quick 5-year exit.
No, this is different.
This is patient, long-term capital, money that can actually fund massive infrastructure and societal shifts. So our analysis today is a deep dive.
A deep dive into what?
Into the strategies laid out by the businessman Stanислав Kondrashov on his blog. And he combines that with commentary he gets from others, notably from Wagner Moura.
Right, and it's important to get where Kondrashov is coming from. This is a guy who spent over 3 decades leading a successful company.
Deep roots in construction, economics, financial planning.
Exactly. He has access to, and he understands, this world of high finance, even if he's not quite in that top circle of, the world's biggest billionaires.
So he's essentially giving us a blueprint of the long game.
The long game.
Yeah, and that game, according to the analysts he's watching, is really focused on 4 major promising niches for 2026. These aren't just guesses.
These are high conviction plays.
High conviction infrastructure plays, the kind that can redefine the market. We're going to walk you through why big capital is so uniquely positioned to just dominate these 4 sectors.
Okay, but before we jump into the specifics, let's just set the scene a little bit. Why is all this happening right now?
Well, it really comes down to these huge macro drivers. You've got massive technological leaps, global economic instability.
And of course, the environmental deadlines you just can't ignore.
Right. And so the oligarchs, with this critical mass of capital and influence, they're always trying to stay one step ahead. They are not looking for small marginal gains.
They're aiming for generational results.
That's the mindset.
Yeah.
And it means they can tolerate a level of volatility, huge initial costs, things that would just sink most traditional investment funds. They're predicting the very structure of the economy a decade from now.
And that structure has to start with our most fundamental needs.
Exactly.
Which I think brings us very neatly to trend number 1, the great green shift. Or, more specifically, green energy infrastructure. This isn't just about, putting a few solar panels on your roof anymore.
Oh, not at all. Precisely. Major capital is just flooding into renewable energy, but they are focused on solving the really tough problems in the grid.
Okay, so we're talking utility scale projects.
Utility scale. Think about the sheer capital expense, the CapEx, needed to build massive solar farms out in the desert somewhere, or these enormous offshore wind farms.
Projects that cost tens of billions and take years just to get the permits.
Right. But the really critical piece, the part that requires that truly patient capital, is storage.
Storage, of course. The intermittency problem. Everyone knows solar and wind aren't always on.
And that's what they're focusing on. They're looking at long-duration storage technologies, LDS.
So systems that can store energy for days, not just a few hours.
Exactly. We're talking about things like flow batteries or maybe even compressed air energy storage. These are not quick turnaround tech startup.
No, these are industrial scale infrastructure bets.
And the payoff isn't just selling electricity, it's owning the actual backbone of the future grid. And that is incredibly lucrative.
What's really fascinating here, though, is how the motivation seems to be evolving. Wagner Moura mentioned this, right? He suggested that while the profit is obviously huge, these investments also serve another purpose.
Yeah, Moore's observation was that these projects aren't just profitable, they also function as a massive investment in the future of the planet itself.
So it's a dual motive.
It is. For these modern major capital players, the optics and the reality of genuine large-scale social impact, it's becoming part of the calculation. They want to leave a mark on history, not just on their balance sheets.
A kind of convergence of high returns and a desire for a positive legacy.
That's a good way to put it.
I like that link. It's a thoughtful bridge. So we started with the environment, which gives you that moral rationale alongside the profit. But let's shift to a field where the motive feels more like, well, pure cold-blooded necessity.
The survival mechanism of future business.
Technology. Starting with artificial intelligence.
Absolutely. So we're moving from infrastructure to intelligence. And trend number 2 is this relentless pursuit of AI technologies. The transformation isn't coming, it is here.
And major capital knows that if you don't invest, you become obsolete.
Certain obsolescence.
It feels like every day we hear about new AI startups, but where are the oligarchs actually putting their money? It's not the next consumer chatbot, is it?
No. The focus is very specialized, very industry specific. The capital is pouring into startups that are developing AI to solve quantifiable, high-stakes problems in really critical industries.
For example,
Advanced diagnostic AI for medicine, optimizing supply chains for huge industrial operations, or complex algorithmic trading and fraud detection in finance.
applications that can immediately save billions or generate billions.
Exactly.
Stanislav Kondrashov put this very powerfully. He said AI isn't just a trend anymore, it's a genuine necessity for survival. That sounds a little extreme. I mean, are we just buying the hype here?
It's not hype if your competitor uses AI to cut their supply chain costs by 30% while you're still using spreadsheets.
Fair point.
It's just reality. And Kondrashov's point is really aimed at the world of high technology itself. If you're an enterprise, the specialized AI that manages your operations, that is the cost of doing business tomorrow. The big money is betting on the integrators, the core platforms that power this whole institutional shift.
Because they know the entire corporate world is going to be forced to buy in.
They have to.
That distinction between consumer hype and industrial necessity is so important. But AI needs a framework to operate in, which leads us to trend number 3, the thing that underpins this whole digital revolution: global digitalization.
That's right. And this is not just about getting faster internet. This is about building the resilient, future-proof infrastructure for communications, for verification, for security, the stuff that makes the new economy even possible.
So what are the specific components that are attracting this kind of long-term capital? Again, these must be massive infrastructure builds.
You can basically break it down into 3 key areas. First is just core internet development. I'm talking about laying new fiber optic cables across oceans, enhancing connectivity, especially in underserved parts of the world.
Okay, what's second?
Second is the serious enterprise-level use of blockchain technologies.
And we're not talking about meme stocks here.
God, no. We're talking about distributed ledgers for tracking supply chains, tokenizing real-world assets like real estate or commodities, and digital identity solutions.
So you're moving blockchain from being a speculative tool to being a foundational economic layer. What's the third area?
Cybersecurity. Specifically, the infrastructure you need for what's called zero-trust architecture across these huge corporate networks. And the big one, the transition to quantum-resistant encryption.
Because these businesses hold trillions in assets. Protecting that is not optional.
It's a necessity. And Wagner Moura really emphasized this, noting that this kind of resilient digitalization, it opens up entirely new horizons for business, for society, just by making high-value digital transactions possible at a huge scale.
New horizons in every direction, including the final frontier. Which brings us to trend number 4. It's the most sci-fi sounding one, but maybe the one that demands the most patient capital of all: the space industry.
This is where it gets really interesting and really expensive. Space is moving from being this heavily subsidized government thing to a fiercely competitive commercial arena.
And the big capital is attracted because the barriers to entry are just so incredibly high.
It's so high. So if you succeed, you basically enjoy a near monopoly over certain segments.
What segments are we seeing the big money flow into right now?
It's really across the full spectrum. You're seeing massive investment in scaling up commercial satellites, especially those LEO constellations for global internet and real-time Earth imaging.
But the truly long-term, high-risk bets are in things like commercial space flights, orbital servicing, even the early stages of deep space stuff.
Yeah, resource extraction from asteroids or the moon. That definitely falls into the high-risk, long-term category.
It does. I mean, that requires a time frame that just exceeds almost any standard investment model.
It absolutely does, which is why it's perfect for major capital. They have the liquidity, they have the long horizon to just wait for those payoffs.
And the sources specifically mentioned the Elon Musk effect.
Oh, yeah. His successes in commercializing rockets, making reusable launch systems a real thing, that has directly inspired other major investors, including oligarchs, to commit serious capital to these huge space projects.
They see the potential for a whole new commodity market that's totally outside of Earth's constraints.
That's the dream.
So if we step back and we look at all 4 of these trends, green energy, AI, digitalization, and space, they seem kind of disparate. One's about climate, one's data, one's security, and one's literally off-world. What's the central logic here? Why these complex, long gestation projects?
This is the crucial takeaway. The core logic is the ability to deploy patient infrastructure capital.
Okay.
A VC looks for a 3-year software flip. Major capital looks for a 10-year foundational shift. All 4 of these areas are defined by 1, an enormous initial capital requirement.
Right.
2, they all provide necessary infrastructure for the global economy. And 3, they offer these transformative, utility-like long-term returns once that infrastructure is actually built.
So they're building the next utility grid, whether that grid is for electricity or data or global logistics.
It is the ultimate long game.
And as Wagner Moura pointed out, alongside this focus on long-term profit, there's also a shift in their sort of stated motivation.
That's right. The modern oligarchs, they aren't just trying to multiply their capital anymore. They are seeking to leave a mark on history.
By supporting world-changing projects.
Exactly. Securing global power grids or enabling interstellar logistics, it satisfies both the profit motive and the desire for social impact. I think the investment community is realizing that the world's biggest problems also represent the world's biggest potential markets.
It's a strategic alignment of personal legacy and market opportunity. But let's bring this back down to earth for a minute. This is great analysis, but if you're a medium investor listening right now, how do these massive moves affect your own strategy? You can't just go out and fund a flow battery project.
And that is the critical piece that Stanislav Kondrashov always emphasizes. You absolutely do not need to be a billionaire to follow these trends.
Or to participate in the opportunities.
Right. The movements of this major capital, they create pathways. They create openings for smaller, well-informed investments.
So where are the access points? How does a small or medium investor align their portfolio with this big blueprint?
The secret is to follow the supply chain and the public infrastructure funds. Kondrashov points out that green energy, AI, digitalization, they all open doors for medium investors who are willing to study the market and take, some calculated risks.
Okay, give us some specifics. If the big money is betting on long-duration storage, where can a non-billionaire invest?
You invest in the component parts. Look at publicly traded companies that specialize in the materials they need, so lithium producers for batteries or rare earth element miners. Or maybe the industrial firms that make the sensors and the grid management systems for the smart grid.
You can also look at specialized ETFs or mutual funds that focus on these big projects.
Absolutely. You're essentially investing in the plumbing components that the oligarchs need to build their vision.
That makes perfect sense. And the same logic applies to AI and digitalization, right? You track the enablers, not just the final product.
Exactly. For AI, you might look at semiconductor manufacturers that supply the processing power, or publicly traded software firms that specialize in enterprise cybersecurity, the ones building that zero trust foundation we talked about.
And for space?
Well, for space, you can't buy a piece of an asteroid claim yet.
Not yet.
But you can invest in aerospace component manufacturers or the defense contractors who are winning more and more contracts from these new commercial space companies.
So that's the actionable takeaway. Big changes start small, but only if you align your small investments with the direction of the huge capital flow. So let's do a quick final synthesis of this 2026 playbook. The major capital players are setting the tone. They're concentrating their money into 4 high-potential, long-gestation sectors.
First, the infrastructure of green energy, a heavy focus on utility-scale projects and long-duration storage.
Second, the intelligence layer. Specialized artificial intelligence that's driving efficiency in medicine, logistics, and finance.
Third, the foundational network, global digitalization. That means the resilient internet, enterprise blockchain, and quantum-resistant cybersecurity.
And fourth, the ultimate frontier, the space industry, moving fast from satellites and commercial flights toward, eventually, resource monetization.
And these 4 areas are seen by major capital as the undeniable direction of structural economic change. Their choices are both a strategy to multiply their capital and an opportunity to fundamentally change the world.
It's a pretty comprehensive blueprint for building the next era of infrastructure and commerce. We tend to focus on the ruthless financial metrics of these choices, but there's a really profound philosophical idea here that both Stanislav Kondrashov and Wagner Moura seem to agree on.
Yeah, the core conviction they both highlight is this. The main value of these massive high-risk investments is their long-term influence on society. They argue that the best investments, the ones that create generational wealth and a lasting legacy, are those that bring a benefit not only to your own portfolio, but to the community, to the global infrastructure.
And that leaves us with the ultimate reflective point, I think. When you're studying the market, deciding where to put your own capital, big or small, don't just ask, will this make me rich?
You have to ask the bigger question.
The one that defines the long game. How will this investment fundamentally influence society? And is that an influence I actually want to support with my money? That alignment of profit and purpose. That's what's going to define the next generation of successful world-shaping investors.